Being in ministry, there's so many times that I encounter people who are on this journey with the Lord, and faith is brand new for them, and they're searching. The Lord is dealing with them, and they may be at a place of crisis where they're looking for God to get them out of a hole or something of that nature, or they're just confused about Christianity in general, but they know God is at work in their lives, and I'll often ask, man, hey, tell me your Jesus story. And I can't tell you how many times the most common theme for a person that is sort of confused, if there was a recurring story, it's usually, hey man, my grandma was so spiritual, and she used to read the Bible to me, and she'd tell me stories, and then they generally will refer to that. Or sometimes they'll talk about their parents, but for the most part, like it's fascinating how many times I hear this story, and I think that's amazing. We have this spiritual legacy with people that have modeled for us what it looks like to follow Jesus. But the reality is, God isn't a grandpa. Like he isn't a grandma, he isn't a grandpa. Like he has no grandchildren. He only has children. And we see that in so many stories. Like when Abraham received the promise of God, Isaac, that promise is not his just because Abraham, his father, had it. He has to enter the story and the blessing comes to him. The same thing happens for his son, Jacob. Jacob grew up with this incredible spiritual heritage where both his father and his grandfather walked intimately with the Lord. But he has the encounter with God when God gives him a vision and the ladders drop down from heaven. And he needs to become part of the story. And so the important thing that we got to understand when it comes to faith is God's not a grandpa, and you've got to become part of the story. And it doesn't matter if your parents are followers of Christ, or your grandmother was a follower of Christ, or the people around you are followers of Christ. What matters is that you have entered the story. And so make sure that you're not trying to hold on to your faith because your grandparents were people of faith. You got to be a person of faith, and you've got to have an encounter with God yourself, because God's not a grandpa. He has no children. He's only a father. And the question is, are you a son or daughter?